Well, good afternoon, LinkedIn Live community and those out there in the webinar space. My name is Charles Maddox, and thank you for attending our monthly webinar. This month, we're focusing back again on security and how it's impacted in the Agile space and within Agile development. This time, I got my esteemed co-guest and co-host, Christine Aykac, and she's also going to give you some perspectives. She's with Acuna Consulting, and we're great and so much appreciative to have her here to share some of her wealth and knowledge around this topic as well. Introductions here. My name's Charles Maddox. For those that don't know, I'm the founder and CEO of the I4 Group. We've been in business the last 10 years in the Agile space based out of Dallas, Texas. A lot of expertise around this cybersecurity space, as well as the Scaled Agile framework and DevSecOps as well. And we've been here in the community. We love to talk with you more, but without further ado, I'll turn it over to Christine for her to give a brief background on herself and what she's been doing over the last few years.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Aykac. I'm started my career within IT. It was a long time ago. We don't need to go there. And then I moved to project management, program management, and so. But last 10 years, I'm concentrated on teaching practices and coaching. 20 years ago, when Agile is introduced, I was one of the first one adopted this, comparing to traditional predictive model management. That's why I applied this. And then, of course, over the years, security become much more important, and cybersecurity become now more important. That's why the importance of thinking Agile, having Agile mindset, and following Agile principle and practices becomes much more important. I am here last couple of years with Acuna Consulting in Washington, D.C. We concentrate on the Agile training as well as the creating learning journeys. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Christine. And I've been fortunate to work with Christine over the last several years with training opportunities and just brainstorming and some leadership topics. So it's been a great journey thus far working with Christine. Well, we'll jump right into it. To give you an overview on what we're going to talk about today is, we're really focusing this topic to those that are in the cybersecurity space, as well as those that are in the Agile space. And the topics here are meant to give us the opportunity to find some shareable or collaborative ways of looking at how we come together as a unified organization or unified team in dealing with these aspects of agility and security. So if you look at this quote here, it's a good way of kicking off this discussion. There's no silver bullet here, or you can't build more secure software unless you understand the threats in your system, meaning that there's really, there's no silver bullet that you can implement that can solve all the problems within your software development space with regards to security. It's something that you have to continually evolve and get better and better at, and learn more and more about your domain and how it's growing and how things are changing in the environment. Okay. Another thing to consider, being in this, information age that we're in, this digital age, there are more digital products, springing up left and right, from our vehicles to our watches to our headsets. I mean, this digital technology and software is embedded in everything. And with that, there's an opportunity for vulnerabilities and someone to attack that system. And it's the quality gaps and the holes and the practices that we may not implement along the way that give rise to the growing number of, you could see, trillions of dollars in revenues and costs are being expended, are forecasted to be expended on these security issues and the cost that it causes. And we're talking about things in terms of systems downtime, patches that have to be installed, going back and, recalling some of the deployments and releases that have been put out there because of, faulty products. But the cost is ever growing because of the number of digital products that we continue to put out in the market. So we need to take, a close look at how are we building these products and how are we aligning ourselves around more secure products. So this Gardner report is actually gives us some guidance on looking at how, where are these vulnerabilities at in our systems. So they call it the attack surface expansion. We're going to build on that word a little bit more here, attack surface, and what that means. But an attack surface is anything in your system that there's a potential for a vulnerability. And so we need to acknowledge what those surfaces are and, monitor and be ready to act, to be able to prevent. And sometimes even in the very, we call advanced areas, we even apply artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms to be predictive in understanding where these vulnerabilities might be on our attack surfaces. So as I said, as the digital product complexity grows, so do the preventative technologies that we have to implement onto our products that help us with expanding our knowledge and preventing our attack surface. The identity system defense, that's another area. And you might, an easy way to understand this from those that might not be in a security space is like single sign-on authentication into systems. So knowing who the user is that is coming into our system, are using our system, to then also to prevent potential attacks from, erroneous or fake identities that are out there that are trying to exploit our systems. Okay, a big impact into the supply chain management. So as we know, we're paying like in here in Texas, almost close to $6 a gallon of gas. And we know that there's some market issues and the supply chain issues that may have been a carryover result from the COVID debacle that we had. But, again, we could see how sensitive our markets are to supply chain issues. And if you have a big attack on the supply chain, that can drive a lot of downstream impacts to, prices going up and to not being able to use your systems, and ultimately to companies having downtime, not being able to operate as usual. And if you have a big attack. All right. All right. I thought I heard a little bit of background noise come back, but no worries there. But so yeah, supply chain issues are another major area that could be that could make our costs go up exponentially if we don't have a way of monitoring on the supply chain. Vendor consolidation. So one thing that we're also looking at from a cost standpoint is how do we optimize the vendors that we are using and the tool stacks that we're using, for example, on security management. So that's going to be a big trend coming up as well. How can we be more efficient in that? So it's that DevSecOps approach on how to shorten cycle times, making sure that we're being as reactive and responsive as possible, and saving costs in that area as well. Okay. Another area that we want to look at is the cybersecurity mesh. And what we're talking about, if you're familiar with the IoT environment, where we're talking about cloud, data centers, we're talking about devices, and understanding those architectural intertwinings that also need to be monitored and have security applied in that level of infrastructure as well, is another area that is a trend that Gardner predicts is an up and coming big area of impact. And then the distributed decisions that need to be made in terms of an organization's applying their security practices in a way that can be in a somewhat centralized fashion, but also to allow for a decentralized model for decisioning when you have a remote workforce, for example, that is being global in that case, that there might be data centers across the globe. And how do we maintain that environment in a secure way when we're distributed in such a fashion? And then lastly, too, number 7 is beyond awareness. And we need to be ahead of the game, ahead of the curve in terms of what are the human behaviors that we need to be accounting for, and also to, taking progressive steps into applying into our algorithms ways that, again, can account for potential human error, human behaviors, and, the human interface reaction, the human interface aspects of a system as well. Okay. All right. So I mentioned before a little bit on the attack surface. And then on every attack surface of a product, and oftentimes when we look at these terms here and these approaches to cybersecurity, we're talking about already deployed products. And we haven't gotten into the agile development piece yet. We're going to get into that. But when you look at the product itself, when it's out there in the market, from a DevOps perspective, that's just a part of the cycle, because we need to be reactive and be able to build the next feature and be able to patch the system properly or address the security issue. So with our deployed products, there are attack surfaces. And then when we actually have an aspect that's being exploited, that we call that an attack vector. And you can see here some of the common attack vectors that we might be familiar with. I know, working in an enterprise environment, you have these phishing emails that come back, come through your accounts, just to make sure that you're being aware that you're not downloading some virus into the system. But what we're showing here, these common attack vectors are very common on deployed software products. And so we need to be aware of those. We need to understand where it is in our development process that we can to prevent some of these from the very beginning. And we want to be, cognizant that these are some of the things that we're ultimately trying to protect our software products from. All right. So when you're managing this process from a cybersecurity perspective, you're managing the attack surfaces and ultimately trying to prevent as much as possible any of these attack vectors from coming in. They oftentimes call this a vulnerability management program. You're managing these vulnerabilities at a large scale. You have a program of doing monitoring, assessment, potentially running some penetration testing, oftentimes to making sure that your system is preventing such attacks, and also to try to get ahead of the curve in terms of assessing and simulating remediation support and running reports on an ongoing basis. So a vulnerability management program oftentimes is what an organization puts in place to make sure that they have these aspects managed as much as possible. All right. So ultimately, we're trying to reduce the vulnerabilities on the attack surfaces with that vulnerability management program. So you're seeing something, some of the aspects being called out here is like identifying, your physical assets and digital assets. Do you have an accounting for them? Do you have a configuration management plan that has these under control? Constantly reviewing policies and controls within your organization to making sure that we have these things under control. We're going to get to too as well. There's a connection here between existing products that have been deployed and new products that are under development. So the policies and controls can also apply to how we apply our development practices going forward to make sure that we're accounting for reduced attack surface and ultimately reduced attack vectors coming in. All right, trying to reduce complexity within our development products. Also, trying to strengthen our systems in terms of their vulnerability. So ultimately, maybe removing an attack surface altogether, that it doesn't exist, or reducing the threat of the vectors coming in on that particular attack surface. All right, and then if you can't remove it completely, you can also try to shrink it. Make sure that there's not as many opportunities within that potential attack vector to that potential adversary could exploit. All right. So overall, when we take like an assessment of our security program, our vulnerability management program, and what we're putting in place in terms of controls and procedures and policies and tools and our monitoring approach, how are we posturing ourselves? And that's what we call our posture. That's your security posture that you're showing, and it really is your level of visibility to the inventory and the assets that might have vulnerable attack surfaces, and the controls and procedures that you do have in place that are able to detect and contain potential attacks. And then of course your ability to react to potential threats when they come down the line. And then also to, lastly but not least, your ability to be optimized with your approach and how many controls and things that you have in an automated fashion being applied in your environment. So that's what we call your posture and how you're measuring and making this approach visible to the outside world. Okay. One tool to do that, or there are many tools to do that, but oftentimes you might employ a framework to do so, which gives you guidance on how to lay out some of these monitoring and these policies and controls that you need to use to help you evaluate and manage your security environment, and then present a certain posture for your organization. There are many different frameworks, as you can see on this slide. Very popular one is the NIST, or the National Institute of Science and Technology. That there is it's a government organization. Actually, is a partnership between government and the private industry, that have put together a framework that allows for the benefit of the of private industry and government industry. In government, it's used quite a bit, but as well as in the private industry as well. But then there are other, you can see there are other frameworks out there, the PCI, CIS. And one of the things about the frameworks, just to know, is that they can be very catered towards certain industries and certain areas of focus. Maybe some are IT, some are more government related. There are different focuses and different coverage of controls and compliance as well. And you can see here, the scale gives you an idea of the more robust, or the ones that have a lot of controls and coverage, versus the one that are more weaker and are probably more geared towards specific industries of focus. Okay. So when you start to look at the development process, when you're building new products and services, how do you take into some of the security controls that might prevent a broader attack surface, or certain attack vectors to be in existence in the first place? So coming from a framework that I just showed on the previous slide, you may select out certain controls that might align with your requirements and planning process, your continuous integration, continuous deployment process. And then that way you have specific things that you're trying to gauge and measure to make sure, right from the beginning of new product development, that you have identified a need to have a secure product, and that you're trying to build secure products right from the start. And then how you might implement some of these products are in some of these, some of these controls are in some of the common tools that are out there. You could see here, we've overlaid a lot of the planning, your traditional Agile lifecycle approach here, from a planning perspective, a continuous integration and deployment, and to continuous operation. There are certain tools that we can use to implement and track some of those controls and policies within our environments, our development environment. So that would be a way that you can, there might be a tool stack in here that might be something that you're currently using, and you could see that, hey, well, how might some of these controls be implemented through either logs or a definition of done that you might be tracking through a program like Jira even, and have a team align on some of the criteria to make sure that you are hitting the right control points that you are wanting to achieve in terms of maintaining a good secure development approach. And then what we know from this is, it's a very popular term that we call out these days. It's called DevSecOps. So it's a DevOps approach with a tighter focus on security, making sure we're calling out those security requirements throughout, And then you can see here, as I laid out even more specifically around the security aspects and the actual lifecycle aspects, how might you use some of these tools in this DevSecOps approach in a continuous way. And then ultimately, as we know, that, you know, to actually make an artifact or a manifest of this from an Agile perspective, we call it our definition of done. And a definition of done is the manifest of what is the level of doneness when something is done and deployed. You know, those in an Agile world know what we're talking about here. What does it mean to be done? And what does it mean to be done? Not like halfway done, developed done, but not security done, or is developed done, but not released done. No, what does it mean to be done? And done means there's only one thing, you know, it's done when it's in the customer's hands and they're using it, and it's secure. It's a high quality deliverable that is secure. And so just like any other requirement that might be non-functional, and maybe in this case a security requirement is non-functional, that we need to account for it in our definitions of done. And so ultimately the things that we just called out in the previous slides in terms of these controls, the output of these controls and the measurements and the compliance to these controls, they would also too be captured in a quote unquote definition of done for our products. All right. And then lastly here, I wanted to call out that, you know, here's a good slide that, you know, those are listening in, you might want to screen capture this, but these are some common terms in the DevSecOps environment that just account for a lot of the things that I just shared, and things that from an Agile practitioner, if you haven't been in a security environment for that long, these are some good words to understand the definitions of. We covered quite a bit of these already, but I would, you know, challenge you guys to go out and research and just, you know, Google and find out what the definitions of these are. Very common terms used in a security environment that it's, you know, we're trying to build, either building security products, or we're going to be moving into this environment one way or another with these products. As I mentioned, you know, in these days, everything has a security risk potentially. So a good list of DevSecOps terms that I would advise that any Agile and security practitioner understand and know, and that way we would be more informed and knowledgeable about what's going on in our environments. So with that, security and Agile, finding the right balance. Now, again, how do we know? So oftentimes we've looked at security as being something from an Agile team perspective, a development team, we say, hey, well, that's a security group over there. They handle that stuff. They handle the security scans and the policies and the compliance and that. But again, as we know from a DevOps perspective, we have shared ownership. We should be looking at this as a shared responsibility across the board for our teams. So what is the right balance? And Christine, I'm gonna want to bring you in on this and help us understand this a little bit better. But when we're talking about having the right balance, well, you know, what do you think about this? And
okay, you talk a lot. All right. Couple things, but we have actually poll questions. I like to put this forward first. Okay. Let's get the feedback first from the audience. Okay, Mohammed, can we run?
Go ahead, Christine. Can you see the poll question? Did it pop up
Yes.
for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it did. Hopefully all the participants. Let's see what type of answers we will get it, because it will help us to address their questions and so on.
So the question is, how do you feel about the increased focus on security in the Agile space? All right. Let's see here. Got a few more people that can got at least. Okay, I think we're pretty close to. Yep, all 4 people took the poll. All right. Do you want to go on to the next poll, Christine?
Yes. Yes. The next question is, how do you feel about the security of Agile projects? You know, having security embedded into the Agile projects for your projects. I mean, think about your organization. What you think about it? Are you sure that it is handled? You know, or you are not sure how Agile projects handle security, or security is concern for you, but you'd like to learn more about how they are addressing, and or security is a major concern for you, and Agile projects are adequate or not, what you are thinking. That we want to know.
All right. I think, Mohammed, you might have to run that next poll for us.
Yes. Wow, okay.
So both questions should have been, they were both answered.
Okay.
So on question one, we have 100%. I'm glad that security is being taken seriously, and that our team is doing everything possible to protect our data. For question number two, we have 75% that I'm confident in the security measures we have in place, and 25% security is a concern for me, and I'd like to learn more about how to address it in Agile projects.
Okay. Thank you for the replies, guys. What is, first of all, what I want to bring it up, whether you are running Agile adaptive project methods or predictive traditional project methods, it doesn't matter. Security should be part of it. Because you listen, Charles, all the way till this point, is the time is changed now. You know, 10, 20 years ago, having, you know, implementing single sign-on was a, you know, good solution. It resolved a bunch of issues. But today's world, we are living in different world. That's why the just prepared, you know, the solutions, you know, just adding a couple lines on the project plan, it is not going to resolve the issues. If you want to be reactive, you have to be a step ahead of the current new cybersecurity issues, whatever is happening on the market. Okay, if we can close, yes. But how we can find the right balance, of course, you know, you want to run the projects, and if you start thinking all the security related items, how it's going to work. I can hear you saying this because security requirements is extremely heavy as well on the, you know, project, and we are trying to be more adaptive, understand what needs to be done, run iterations, and so on. It's the same way actually to how the Agile principles works. If we can move to the next slide, because I have quite simple overview over there. You see, because we know. And also, you know that last year we celebrated the 20 years of Agile Manifesto Principles publication. Right now it's quite widely employed, but understand that, you know, what we are talking about, the Scrum, Kanban, Lean IT, and all this DDS, TTS, other, you know, system, they are methodologies, frameworks. The idea is having the mindset, understanding that, you know, continuous learning also is the key in this field. Is not, there is no one standard structure. It says, you know, yeah, you are Agile now. Actually, there is no such a thing, because if you are Agile, the changes, you will keep adopting it and moving forward. You will be keep learning new things. Okay. That's why actually, if you have this mindset, it works with security, all the security related items, the new inventions, usage of the new tools, and everything works very well. That's what I'm trying to say. There is no one training. There is no one book that you will read and you will say, okay, next 10 years, I am good with this knowledge. That's why understanding the security requirements and what needs to be done, actually, it is quite benefits to your project. And that's why if you add this mindset to the security mindset as well as the agile mindset to your current task, activities, projects, actually you will have much better speed and flexibility. Okay, that's why when we talk about agile practices or agile development, we ensure that is not being agile, but employing to DevOps and DevSecOps is part of the structure. Because whatever your need, you should be open to accept those changes. Until you have this, you cannot mitigate security risk in your agile projects or traditional projects whatsoever. Yeah, I hope this gives you some clarity on this, the expectation. You know, there is no one magic pill. Actually, I want to go back to Charles. At the beginning, you mentioned it, you know, there is no one solution fits everything. There is no one magic pill, you know, you will subscribe it and will resolve all your problems, all your security issues. Unfortunately, there is not such a thing. What you need to do, you need to learn the continuous learning, continuously understanding what is happening on the innovation side of the world. What are the stuff is available for you? And for your personal life even, you know, that's why the impact to our privacy, all this comes with, you know, understanding and continuous learning and being open-minded and accept the change, because the change is happening quite so fast. And sometimes it's tiresome, I can understand, but this is the environment, 21st century we are in. Okay, Charles, can we go to the next slide? Or I can stop if there is any question. I see there are some questions, or hybrid, someone said. Yes, I am not too much fussed about methodologies, because it should be work package team members, you know, work streams, they need to make a decision about the methodology they use. It's not the methodology. Whatever the methodology fits your environment, your task, your activities, you should be using this. Important thing, understand the security part of it. Understand, you know, if you are dealing with external vendors, if you are, you know, your tool is going to be used by the public, open to other system, and all this stuff needs to be understood. Okay, this is the key. That's why I don't think too much about, you know, which methodology to choose within Agile umbrella. Any methodology, whatever fits your development structure, your team, your environment, is the right tool, right methods. Just ensure that you review the security requirement, privacy requirements, confidentiality requirements. All this stuff comes in a package, you know, it's one, and you should consider all this stuff. So if there is no other question, we can move on to the next slide. Anything else? Great. Okay, if there is no question, I see that there is a slide, upcoming webinars. Yeah.
Christine, there is a question we just want to address it to the public, is how do we manage security in cloud?
Oh, yeah, it's this, guys, it doesn't matter whether the cloud or your next room to data center. Is of course, how you choose the cloud. I mean, I'm not talking about, you know, for the organization using coffee shops, cloud services, but it doesn't matter. The cloud is just the flexibility it gives you. You don't need to, you know, get to your hardware and manage all the security pieces within your infrastructure located in one location. Cloud gives you quite flexibility that you can add remote server infrastructure, and depends on the, you know, the cloud service you are selecting, they can provide services as well. Here, my only distinguish is whether you are small business, large enterprises, that you will choose. Because if you are a small business currently having to data center in-house, is quite expensive from the security perspective. That's why the cloud actually provides better solution. But again, it's depending on your situation. But from the project management perspective, it doesn't matter. Security needs to be part of it. You have to ensure that, all the security requirements handled in the cloud environment, as well as your, local data center. So remember, the hackers start to attack the data center without the cloud. Cloud didn't create the cybersecurity issues. The defects and the mistakes in the environment and the infrastructure created those issues, not the cloud. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I actually, Christine, too, I replied in the type-in answer to that too. I didn't realize that it didn't show to everyone, but yeah, I made the same points that you made, that security is security, whether it be cloud or non-cloud products. One benefit that we do have with the cloud products is that they knew that that was an issue. Like take AWS, for example, you can become an AWS security practitioner because they know that you can get training on their tools on how to manage security. So from a tooling standpoint, they've they got some tools that you can use that can help you monitor and report on and help prevent those attack surfaces and vulnerabilities that I was explaining. But yeah, so if you don't have an advanced tool like an AWS or an Azure that can account for those tools or account for those security threats, then you gotta have another way to monitor and address those threats. So
definitely. That's why it's always look at it from the holistic perspective. It's not just the one tool, one server, one environment is a problem. You have to look at the holistically this whole solution. Yes.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions or comments that anybody wants to bring up? Right now, I think we've moved into the end of our webinar here, and we're open for comments and questions. While we're waiting for some questions, Christine, to pop up, I wanted to get your opinion on something. Now that security has become a big focus for our teams when they're building products, we didn't always used to have to work very closely from a development team with people with security backgrounds. And how can we build a better alignment and understanding? Because there is, the security group, they do have their own initiatives. They're trying to build security structure. And then we have development teams that have their own initiatives that you're trying to launch these products. But there's a big overlap here between building secure products. So how do we build better relationships between these two groups? And what have you seen? And
Yes. It's unfortunately, this is what I see as well. But as soon as I start, initiative program, that's why I introduced to ensure that everyone understands what we meant with Agile, what we meant with the DevOps or DevSecOps, because DevOps is a nice short term, but doesn't mean just developers and operation, but the testers, the security, the architect needs to understand that we are on this together. And you are absolutely right, because what happens, I'm smiling because all the time I see the same thing. When you identify resources and security says, 20%, we cannot tell you who will be the one, whoever is available will attend your meetings and, will think because they have their own work as well. But this is the biggest mistake. You see, the security cannot be taken lightly, especially if we are dealing to, the products with the end users. No, you have to do everything possible to prove that you need the security folks embedded within the team. They are there at the beginning, at the design. And so I understand during the testing, the execution, and so their role might be, reduced from full-time to part-time or 25%, but they have to include it. And what is good about it, that what you show us at the beginning, all these slides, I know we will share with the participants, and they should take this and share with their project sponsors, executives, and so on. This is key, because you don't know where the vulnerability is. You know, you don't know how the end user is using, where they are going to use it. You know, because we have everything on our cell phones today. You know, they might be, you know, the less on data, whatever the reason, or they cannot reach to, you know, their vendor data. They might hook up to the, you know, coffee shops internet. You see, you don't know where the vulnerabilities is. It could be anything, because I have my sunglasses with the microphone and I use as a headset, but you don't know what is, you know, what else is going out from my, you know, the coming out from my speakers on my sunglasses. But that's why the security, who is going to use this tool, how they are going to use this tool. That's why you need to full-time security resources, especially at the beginning. And your slides was very right on. They should use this to, you know, create the argument with the sponsors.
Yeah. Another question I have too is that the culture. You know, oftentimes that maybe an organization doesn't have, and I'm a CISO coming into an organization, and we're building products that we know are going to be potentially at risk for attacks. But I'm coming to an organization that they just don't have a security focused culture. And also too, there's a culture where people kind of work in silos. So what have you seen as a way of kind of breaking that culture mindset? I mean, how do you get into that?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It is very important. What I found actually running, 15 to 20 years as a project program manager, approach needs to totally change. Now is in my projects programs, I have coaches, I have leads, and more people actually, create trusted environments. You see, this is because this is the only way you can change the culture. Culture doesn't change top down. Culture doesn't change when the executive sends email, oh, we are moving to Agile tomorrow, everyone is empowered. It doesn't happen this way. Culture change happens from the bottom up. And for this, you need people on the ground, supporting the teams, explaining them. I was just in a meeting this morning and saying, no, give us a plan. I'm saying, no, I would like to build a plan with your inputs over there. You see, but because we need to train those folks, we need to explain them the approach and them to taking ownership without thinking firing and, like they will lose their job if they make a decision or to take the ownership. That requires, then again, on this front, training and the continuous learning is important, but the team should have a group of people they can trust. It could be, that's why the new names for this, the coach, it could be coaches, it could be program manager, it doesn't matter. But when they have the trusted people, they will be more open, share the information. This is the key. And my next webinar on PMI, that's I am talking about the collective intelligence. This is the reason, you see, bringing teams' intelligence to the upfront, because there is a loss of intelligence, expert knowledge in the teams that we lose it because they don't speak up. You see, they don't participate for whatever the reason. But this we need to bring up. We need to change the culture, make it more open, understandable, acceptable culture. And agreeing on the, disagreeing. You can be disagree, but still you can talk, or you can say your, thoughts and everything. Agreeing on disagreeing, this is the key. But talking is important. That's will require the culture change. And I know it's certain organization, especially the more traditional organization, it's more difficult, but I think it could be done. It could be done, definitely.
Got it. Yeah, that, one thing too, I'd just like to share, and I know I'm actually a researcher at the University of North Texas in this space of agility and security. And one of the findings that I found through researching all the research papers that are out there, that's like the biggest hurdle that people have found is this cultural issue with trying to implement better security practices within their development environment. It's just that they had a culture, they've inherited a culture
Yeah.
that want to focus that closely on that, and they also to have a culture that just not that collaborative. And so with those two things that combine, where you just don't have a very security focused culture, and you don't have a tradition of having a very collaborative culture, that is a very risky culture to having big vulnerabilities pop into your environments, into your products. So that's one of the key things that I've found so far in some of my research and out there. So
Yeah, no, it is very interesting research you do. You mentioned it's, but it is important. Yes, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
all
All
right.
right.
Any other questions, comments coming in from anyone? I don't see anything on the link. We got this going on LinkedIn Live as well. And I'm not seeing anything there either. What we can do, we can move on now to upcoming webinars, actually. So Christine, you want to give an overview of the Elite Agilist program?
Yes, sure. Let's move on there. Okay.
Okay. You can give an overview of this and what this is about.
Yeah, if you can
Can you
switch.
see it? Can you see it yet? Is it
Not,
popping up?
not yet.
It says
Okay, this is, I don't know, it was the next slide. Anyway, we can share with the participants
oh,
definitely.
there it is. Okay.
There you go. This is actually the Acuna Consulting. We created this Elite Agilist website. There is a bunch of information, membership site created, everything, anything related to Agile. From the frameworks, the approaches, the methods, tools, everything is available today. It's over there. It's grouped. You can have the short version of videos, the blogs, vlogs, content, bunch of content is over there. With this opportunity, we are giving 3 months free access to all the participants. Information is in here in detail, but I'm sure we can share this information with all the participants, because if you use this link, will not ask you to put your credit card or any information. You can just register and see what is in it. If you like, you can stay. If if it is not something for you, you can just browse it and put your comments. We are quite open to comments, but it is good site. It gives you an idea what I like, as I mentioned, the vlogs and the podcast information, and webinar recordings are over there. It's just, you can just listen, pick and choose whatever you need. It is good site. I recommend to register.
All right. Thanks, Christine. Another opportunity for those that are out there too is a training program through the I4 Group's Academy. It's a newly launched academy. For those that aren't aware, Cyber Agility Academy, and cybersecurity agility professional. And essentially kind of what you're looking at is a combination of product management, DevOps, and certified ethical hacker. So it's giving you an idea of the security environment that we're in, the opportunities of vulnerabilities and threats, and then how might you within a DevOps environment account for some of these from a product management approach. And so that's the goal of this program. And please visit cyberagility.academy to get more information about this program. All right. Any last questions or comments before we close out? Well, thank you, Christine, so much for your visit with us today and sharing some of your knowledge. And I hope we can do this again and
Yes.
keep going. This was some good topics to discuss today.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much inviting me, and looking forward to feedback. Any question, the folks can reach me as well as you. You know, we are here to help you get this all this knowledge share. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And then, yeah, this webinar will be published. It'll also be on YouTube, and it'll be shared with those that attended or registered. And we look forward for you to join our next webinar. So be on the lookout soon. Again, we have a monthly webinar, usually the last Thursday of the month. This time it got extended because we were a week over. We postponed this webinar this time, but usually the last Thursday of the month, 1 p.m. or 12 p.m. Central is the typical time we give these webinars. So until then, thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye for now.